What is up, everybody? My name is Cole. I'm a part-time real estate investor, full-time legacy airline pilot, and a part-time military instructor pilot. Today's video is talking about the break-in time I had from starting my 777 training on Wednesday, came home Wednesday night to Milwaukee to be able to close not one, not two, but actually 4 deals total. One of them was 20 units across 5 four-family apartment buildings, and the rest were all duplexes. It totaled out to be about $1.8 million. I'm juggling, flying for the airlines, trying to close deals, and I'm trying to document some of that along the way. So if you're new to the channel, I appreciate you clicking the video. The idea here is really just to give a super transparent view on how to build a real estate portfolio, what the numbers actually look like. I include closing statements, my monthly income and expense reports, and try to give a little bit of an antidote to all the BS that's out there. People are talking about things that either they don't know about or they're lying about, and I'm trying to dispel all of that with my own experiences. Obviously, I can only speak for myself. My Milwaukee portfolio here is what I know, and I know the numbers in and out on that stuff, and I'll talk about all of that, but it should give you kind of some insight as to what it might look like in other markets if you're looking at getting into real estate, or if you're into aviation, or you're into both. That's kind of the whole premise of what I'm doing here. I started my 777 transition training on Wednesday. I started with a leadership course, and then Monday is when I really get into the ins and outs of how to operate the airplane and start that whole process, and eventually, hopefully, leave with a type rating and not a pink slip, as they call it. So hopefully with no failure. And what that means is that I'll be taking a back seat to the military for a little bit. I flew a bunch with the military in January, but now I'm going to be gone in training. So I'm not gonna be able to do any military flying. And the real estate stuff too, I strategically placed most of my closings all into March because I'm not gonna be back really except for maybe some Fridays throughout the month of February. So I really am not gonna have a good opportunity to close the rest of these deals. As far as what's ahead, I've got 11 single families under contract that will all be closing in March, and that's the next thing that's coming up. There's always stuff happening, but it's a balance. I only make so much money. I'm thankful for the job I have, but I can only save up down payments so quickly, and anybody that's gotten into real estate understands what that is. 20% adds up quickly, right? Even on a $100,000 duplex or a single family, that's 20 grand, right? And I can only do that so many times before I just run out of money. So what that means is that we're doing refinances, we're selling stuff, because cash out refinance on paper always sounds good, but in reality, some of these properties are older, and I don't want to hang on to them for that long. I don't want to hang on to them for another 5-10 years because they have major capex expenses coming. And I'm trying to refresh the portfolio into 1940s, 50s, and 60s duplexes, single families, 4 families, etc. So all that to say, it's expensive to get into real estate. So it requires selling things and making moves with the portfolio that I currently have to try to expand it and get stuff into the future. So what happened this week though? 3 duplexes. I already talked about 2 of them in the last video, but I got 3 of them with hard money. So that means that it's a private bank. It's basically somebody that has money that's willing to lend it out. Sometimes it's mom and pop small businesses. Sometimes it's national brands. Sorry, there's a hair floating there. There's national brands that do the same thing. So I use a local brand, Mach 1, super awesome lender in southeastern Wisconsin if you happen to be there. Really easy to work with. I actually met with them for the first time today. I maybe have done 10, 15 deals with them, maybe more than that. I honestly don't know at this point. A bunch of deals with them, and I never met them. I never even talked to them on the phone or anything. I just sent them an email and said, hey, I'm looking at this deal, and they were good with it, and on and on and on. So it's kind of interesting. I'm like a faceless person, and they're like a faceless person to me, but I actually met them for the first time today and had about an hour to talk with them about my plans for the future and how I'm trying to adjust the portfolio, and also about what they're trying to do and how we can try to meet each other's needs, basically. So that was cool. So I got those with hard money. Basically what that means is I'm paying 4% of the gross that I'm spending on them. So if you spend $100,000, you're giving away $4 grand. And in this case, I spent over $300,000. So I gave away a lot of money. I offset that by using the rent credits and the security deposit credits to help bring my cash to close down. But that's not free money, right? I'm going to not get paid rent for the month of February, and the security deposits will eventually be paid back to the tenants. So it's almost like a loan against yourself, if that makes sense. But I got those. I'm out of pocket maybe $5,000 for those duplexes, which was over $300,000. One for 110, one for 120, and one for 150. I showed the closing statements for 2 of them. I'll try to include the statements for the other one today. And then the big deal, the biggest deal I've done yet, was $1.4 million, 20 units, all brick or like townhouse style apartment buildings, three of them in a row and then two next to each other in a different location. And what I did was basically sell a bunch of properties, and I spent $266,000 in down payment money to get these other apartment buildings. It was just a refresh, essentially. I sold old duplexes from like the early 1900s and traded them into these four families. So not only did I get more units, I also got newer units that require less maintenance and are cookie cutters of each other. So it makes it a lot easier for the management company, hopefully. And anybody that's watched this before, I use a property manager. I'm not managing the day-to-day operations. I could not take credit for that and all the chaos that ensues. I'm focused on my airline career and my military flying career, and I just don't have the bandwidth to buy deals, sell deals, refinance deals, find insurance, just like all the little tasks that come along with that, but then also try to be good at my airline job, try to be good at my military job as an instructor pilot. It's just too much for me. So it's a cost of doing business. Some people have made comments and said, why would you pay somebody that money when you could do it yourself? And it's just an opportunity cost. If I'm managing buildings, I can't be elsewhere, AKA doing my other jobs. And right now, those other jobs pay enough that it makes sense to do it the way I'm doing it right now, I think. And down the road, we may revisit that and change things. But for the moment, it is what it is. And I think it makes a lot of sense to leave it alone. And so I'll show you the closing statement for this deal. $1.4 million, the biggest deal I've done. We'll jump over to my computer and I'll show you what that looks like. I'll walk through line items, kind of give you an idea of what does it actually take to close a deal that size. 80% loan to value, just all the ins and outs I'll talk about on my computer because it's a little less clunky than me like holding up a physical paper and trying to talk to you about it. So 1.8 million almost in deals this week. Probably my biggest week of all time. But it oddly doesn't feel that way because we sold stuff and we were sitting on the money at land title for the 1031 exchange. So it was all kind of pre-set up and it wasn't that big of a deal because I wasn't having to fund the down payment personally. It was coming out of the business, which is still my money and our money, but it doesn't feel quite the same when you're not physically handing over a check or cash, which I'm sure somebody here could appreciate. And the last thing I wanted to address was a comment that I got, and I thought it was a really good comment. And basically the question was, is it easier to buy properties because of the job that I have, because of the money that they pay airline pilots and whatnot? And the response I have to that is basically that I started out at Five Guys, and I'll throw up a picture of me working at Five Guys here. I worked at Five Guys for years, and that's what paid for my private pilot license. And then I eventually went straight to the military out of high school, to the only branch that allows you to fly without a college degree, until I later got my college degree. But there was a lot of interim times, and even when I came back from flight school, I didn't have enough hours to get a job at any real place. So I was delivering mail in the city of Milwaukee, and that's how I kind of learned the ins and outs of the areas I like, the areas I don't like. But I was buying properties at that point too. That's when I got my first flip house. I was working for the post office. I was delivering mail by day and flying for the military by night and fixing my flip house after that was done. So my buddies and I were out there literally painting until like 2 or 3 in the morning, eating pizza, just hanging out, having a good time. And that's where it all began. Sorry, I had a little bit of a hiccup. My computer shut off, and so the audio cut out. All I was saying is that I haven't always had this airline job. The airline job is relatively new. I mean, I started flying for the airlines in 2018, but then the place I was working at went out of business during COVID, and so I was back on the street. And I've had a lot of back and forth. The point is, I wasn't always making really good money, and even now I'm still relatively new at the airline I'm working at. I've only been there for 3 years. I would tell anybody that maybe thinks, oh, well, it must be easy, like this guy's got an airline job. I've been doing this the whole time, and the only reason that it's successful now is because of the things that I did back then. So if you're thinking about this and trying to get into real estate and you're like, man, I just don't make enough money. This guy makes a ton of money, which I don't really, but I make good money. I can't get into the market because I don't make enough at my job. It just takes one deal. And that's what I'm trying to kind of show you guys is even in one deal, you can do a lot of damage. And honestly, at the beginning, if you don't come from a lot of money or a family or something, which I did not, you have to make that first deal work. That one deal is really what you've got. That one deal is what you've got. And so you've got to make every deal count, especially the first 5 deals. I would say those are like the imperative that you don't make a mistake, because it's going to be so hard to recover from that if you don't have a good paying job. Or if you're trying to flip houses, pay for your family, if you have kids, a wife, whatever, you've got a mortgage, you've got a car payment, you add all this stuff up, adding a flip house or a duplex on top of that could be really stressful if you make a mistake early on. So I'm hoping to give out some good information so people can avoid that, and we'll see where it goes. But I'll break down the spreadsheet for the closing statement on the $1.4 million deal, and I'll try to throw in the other one as well so I can talk about the hard money again and give you guys another perspective on another deal that I used, which on paper, 4% of a funding fee and 14% interest-only payments sounds horrible, but sometimes it's a tool that can be used for certain deals. Every job requires a different tool, and in those cases this week, those deals required that tool. So I'll break it all down. I'll show you guys what it looks like. And again, all of you that are newer to the channel, if you subscribed from the last couple of videos, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch it and subscribe to see more. It means the world to me. So all you guys are awesome. I really appreciate all the comments. Just keep sending them. I'll keep replying to them, and I'll talk to you on the computer. See ya. All right, what's up, everybody? Here's the first closing statement as promised. Like I said, I always block out some of the information. Sellers didn't ask to be involved in any of this. I didn't ask them to include them, so I try to block out some of the information. This is a closing statement. If you haven't seen one before, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll go through the seller side first, and then we'll talk about my side. Go through it real quick. $1.4 million is what I paid for the 20 units. Some people might think that's a good deal. Some people might think that's a bad deal. This person only had $87,000 on a mortgage, so they're about to get paid. I can tell you that. All thanks to my purchase. They gave me prorations, which turns into a credit. You can see they are mirror images on both sides. It's a credit for me, and it's a debt for them. So they paid taxes to the city, and they prorated it up to this point from the beginning of the year till February 5th, which is yesterday when I closed on it. And that was worth, basically what they did was they took what was last year's bill, and then they divided that out and gave me credits for that. $31 for the fire inspection fee, which happens quarterly. Water, sewer bills, which I will get nailed for eventually here. $55 for ice and snow removal. $12,000 for the rents based on the rent roll. I had the majority of the month, not the entire month. So they give you whatever's left in the month in terms of rents as a rent credit. And this is why I recommend, if you're starting out and you want minimum money out of pocket, close at the beginning of the month. Do whatever you can to close on the first or the second or whatever, so you can maximize your rent credits. It's not free money again. You're just not going to get paid rents for the entire month, but the closer you are to the first, the more rent credits you're going to get. Security deposits, again, that's going to come no matter what. So that's what I got. I got a ton of credits on this, obviously. Continuing down, they had to pay gap insurance, title insurance, which is all normal. Closing fee, assessments, courier fees, $4,200 for title recording, satisfaction of judgment, $400 for judgment payoffs, $200 for another judgment payoff to different entities. Again, who didn't ask to be in this video, so I did not include them. Paying off the 2025 tax bill, which is nice for me, so I don't have to worry about it. So that came out of what they got. And then they had an $875 Starker fee, which Starker is just another word for 1031. So this person's 1031ing $1.215 million. Not bad, right? Not bad at all. So they got paid, as I would say, $1.2 million. That's what would have hit their bank account if they didn't 1031 this. But they're a real estate professional, so they're going to 1031 it and kick the can down the road and not pay capital gains. On my side, $1.4 million is what I paid. I had to get a loan because I'm not balling out of control. So I took a loan out for $1.1 million with Summit Credit Union. And I got everything that they had as a debt on this side is a credit to me. So this helped reduce my 20% down payment because this all gets applied towards your bottom line. Appraisal fee, I paid $1,500, which is really nothing for appraisal, honestly, for 20 units across 5 buildings. But anyways, tax services, appraisal review, paying somebody to look at the appraisal and say it's good. Procurement fee, and then a closing fee, $2,800 to Summit Credit Union. So they got paid a little bit. Loan policy, but honestly, $2,800 compared to what you're going to see on the next page. I paid over double that for $150,000 to the hard money lender. I paid $2,800 for $1.1 million on the loan and a $1.4 million purchase price. So you'll see there's a stark contrast between the two, but there's different tools for different jobs. Settlement closing fee, a couple recording fees, nothing too crazy. And then my money got moved from my Starker account, my 1031 account for them, and it got directly transposed over here. So the original loan was actually larger, but the thing was I needed to use all this money. So $266,000 is what I had sitting in the first 5 open 1031 exchanges, and that's the money that got applied to this closing. So that's how I pulled this deal off. I sold off the old Southside properties that were kind of rickety and old, and I transposed it into this deal, which gives me 20 brick units that I can kind of set and forget for a long time to come, I hope. So that's the $1.4 million deal wrapped up in one simple closing statement. And here's the other one. Now this is this is another Mach 1 deal that I did this month. And let me zoom in for you guys. I know that was a comment. Again, different title company, slightly different closing, but it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go through my side. It's not as important. They did a 1031 on this one as well. So you'll see same numbers transposed on different sides of the sheet, but I'm the borrower. So I borrowed $150,000 of hard money, hard cold cash. I got some credits for security deposits and rent prorations and whatnot. And I paid Mach 1 $6,000 to write this loan for $150,000. So I paid double what I paid Summit for a loan that was much, much larger, almost 10 times larger. Prepaid interest for the month of February. Closing fees, insurance, title insurance, some other random fees, whatever, wire fee, sure. You're going to end up paying fees. That's just what happens. And if you get to the very bottom here, you see what I brought to close. So to get this $150,000 duplex on the hard money, I brought $2,800 to close. Not bad for the exposure that I'm getting. And now I've got 3 duplexes that I'm going to clean up. A couple of them have city orders for issues that were, some of them like bugs and God knows what. I'm going to fix them all up. I'm going to make them nice, get the good rents out of them, and then I'm going to bring them to a big bank, a Landmark, a Summit, somebody, and I'm going to package all these up and refinance them. So you guys will be able to see what this looks like in 3, 4, 5 months. When I bring these all together, I've got 150, and then the other one was 110 and 120,000, which you guys have seen in a previous video. I'm going to package all these bad boys up with good solid rents and refinance them onto long-term debt. So that's my technique. Again, 2 totally different deals, different lenders, different strokes for different folks, as they say. So in this situation, I used somebody completely different. I paid a ton of money, but I needed it because I need to get them stable before I bring them to a big bank. Appreciate everybody watching the videos. Hopefully this has been insightful, helpful, and maybe something for you to ponder over the weekend as you get ready to embark maybe on your first real estate deal. If you have any questions, any thoughts, anything about that, let me know. I'm happy to answer questions, and I will get back to every single comment. So let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.